Welcome to Sacred Seasons, a place where ancient stories breathe again, and the voice of the earth still whispers through time. Here, we walk the wheel of the year, honor the old gods and goddesses, and remember the wisdom written in the wind, the fire, the soil, and the stars. Take a deep breath, open your heart, and step with me beyond the veil of the ordinary. There is a moment in every soul's journey when something ancient stirs beneath the surface of ordinary life. It begins softly, like a whisper rising through the stillness of a forgotten temple. You feel it before you understand it, that restless pulse that tells you there is more to life than survival, more to existence than what the world expects of you. This is the first breath of awakening, the moment when the maiden opens her eyes within you. She is not an age, not a body, not a myth confined to the past. The maiden is the pure essence of beginnings, the divine spark that trembles at the threshold of discovery. She is the part of you that looks at the world and sees not what is, but what could be. She is curiosity, freedom, and the courage to step beyond inherited boundaries. Her path is not innocence. It is awareness newly born, unshaped by fear. She is the wild rhythm that beats in your chest when you dare to dream without permission. In the Wiccan current, the maiden corresponds to the waxing moon, to springtime, to the breath after winter's silence. She is the energy of renewal, of possibilities unfolding like the first petals of dawn. Her magic is the call to explore, to question what has been accepted, to wander beyond the known, to reclaim the forgotten language of the soul. Every seeker who begins a spiritual path meets her first, for she is the impulse that says, "There is more to you than this." But awakening is not comfortable. The first light always exposes the shadows that sleep beneath the skin. The maiden's curiosity often meets resistance, not only from the world but from within. She must face the weight of conditioning, the voices that tell her to stay quiet, to stay safe, to stay small. Yet her power lies in the refusal to obey. Each question she asks becomes a spell that breaks illusion. Each boundary she crosses becomes a rite of passage toward freedom. The priestess within whispers. Every journey begins with a sacred disobedience. The maiden is that rebellion made holy, the spirit's decision to live fully, to listen to the call of the unknown, even when the path ahead is invisible. She teaches that faith is not certainty but movement. It is the courage to walk when the only light is your own intuition flickering in the dark. In this phase, life feels like a series of open doors and unseen maps. Desire and doubt walk, hand in hand. The soul begins to remember that joy is not a distraction but a compass. The maiden's laughter is her spell, her dance an invocational possibility. She invites you to rediscover the world through wonder, to look at your reflection and see not limitation but potential. To understand that beginnings are sacred because they are fragile, and in that fragility lives the power of creation. Every sunrise is her face. Every spark of inspiration is her breath. The moment you decide to start again, despite fear, you embody her. The maiden teaches that awakening is not about becoming something new, but remembering what you were before you forgot your magic. She is the keeper of your first truth, that you are alive for a reason, and that reason begins to unfold the instant you listen to the whisper within. Her voice is not loud. It hums beneath your heartbeat. It is the pull toward freedom, the thirst for authenticity, the longing to see the divine reflected in your own eyes. She reminds you that you are not searching for something outside yourself. You are answering the call of your own soul. When you walk with the maiden, you walk the path of becoming. You breathe for the first time as who you truly are. And as she moves through you, something changes forever. The circle begins to turn. The pulse of life quickens, and what was still begins to bloom. The maiden does not linger. She awakens and moves forward, carrying you toward the next threshold where creation waits to be born through you. There comes a moment after the first awakening when the air feels different, charged with something invisible yet undeniable. The world that once seemed solid begins to shimmer, as if reality itself were only a thin veil stretched over mystery. The seeker stands between what was and what is coming, caught in a sacred tension. This is the realm of the in-between, the place where the maiden begins her true initiation. To awaken is one thing. To walk awake in a world that sleeps is another. The newly opened eyes see not only beauty, but contradiction. The patterns of life that once felt natural now feel constraining. Every expectation, every imposed rule begins to weigh like chains. And so begins the sacred rebellion, not against society alone, but against every part of oneself that surrendered truth for acceptance. This rebellion is not destruction. It is the SOS insistence on authenticity. The priestess whispers that every seeker must learn to walk between worlds. The visible world demands reason, obedience, and order, while the unseen world calls for intuition, risk, and faith. To exist between them is to be pulled in two directions, toward safety and toward freedom. It is here that the maiden must learn balance, for the power she awakens must be guided, or it will consume itself in restlessness. She is the wind trying to find its shape, the flame that learns not to burn but to illuminate. The path of discovery begins with doubt, not belief. It is through questioning that the soul sharpens its awareness. What do I truly want? Who am I beneath the names the world gave me? What is worth my devotion? These questions echo like drumbeats in the forest of the spirit, and each one brings the seeker closer to the truth that cannot be spoken, only lived. The maiden's rebellion becomes a pilgrimage inward, a journey through layers of illusion toward the sacred center of being. It is during this passage that magic begins to manifest in ordinary life. Synchronicities appear like breadcrumbs leading through the unknown. Dreams grow vivid. Intuition sharpens, and the heart begins to recognize guidance in every sign, every whisper of nature. Yet the mind resists, trying to explain away what the soul already knows. The conflict between logic and intuition becomes a forge, shaping the seeker's faith through friction. Phyllis Curate teaches that to live magically is to live consciously, to see the divine in everything and to act in harmony with that vision. The maiden walking between worlds begins to understand this truth. She learns that rebellion against illusion is not defiance, but devotion. It is the act of returning to natural rhythm, the original order of the sacred feminine that the modern world forgot. Her rebellion is the flowering of consciousness, a declaration that she will no longer be divided within herself. And so she begins to weave her own path, part instinct, part revelation. She learns to trust the quiet voice inside, even when it contradicts reason. She listens to the wind and finds guidance in its rhythm. She gazes at the moon and feels her own cycle reflected back. The separation between herself and the world dissolves. The sacred and the mundane become one. But to live between worlds is also to face loneliness. Many will not understand her transformation. Old relationships may fade, old dreams may crumble. Yet these losses are not punishment. They are purification. The maiden learns that to cross the threshold into authenticity, one must let go of what no longer vibrates with truth. Her tears are not weakness. They are the cleansing waters of rebirth. This stage of discovery is the heart of transformation. Here, rebellion becomes wisdom. Curiosity becomes devotion. The seeker realizes that she is not walking away from the world, but walking toward its essence. She is learning to see with both eyes, one gazing outward into form, the other inward into spirit. Between them, reality expands into wholeness. As the maiden continues her journey, she begins to understand that freedom is not found in rejection, but in alignment. The more she listens to her soul, the more the outer world begins to mirror her inner truth. She becomes a bridge between heaven and earth, reason and intuition, shadow and light. Her steps are now deliberate, guided by an invisible rhythm that calls her deeper into herself. The rebellion is complete when she no longer fights against what is false, but simply chooses what is real. The in-between becomes her temple, the threshold her altar. She is no longer seeking meaning. She is embodying it. In that moment, she feels the pulse of creation stirring within her, the rhythm of life ready to express itself through her hands, her voice, her being. The path of discovery leads her home to her own creative fire. The maiden's journey through rebellion opens the gateway to the mother's realm. What was once a spark of curiosity now burns as purpose. What began as a search now blossoms into creation. The next step of the circle begins, the moment when awareness becomes nourishment and the energy of life seeks to be born through love and form. There comes a time when the fire of discovery settles into warmth, when the wild wind of the maiden begins to root itself in purpose. The heart that once searched for meaning now becomes the vessel through which meaning takes form. This is the threshold of the mother, the phase of creation, devotion, and sacred responsibility. She is the rhythm of life that sustains the world, the pulse that beats in harmony with the earth. Her power is not in conquest, but in continuity. She is the quiet strength that keeps the stars turning. The mother awakens when the soul understands that freedom is not escape, but participation. The energy that once sought to explore now longs to give, to nurture, to build. In her, the seeker discovers that true creation is not the act of imposing will upon the world, but of cooperating with the divine flow that moves through all things. She is not the creator above nature, but nature herself creating. The priestess within feels this shift like a tide rising, a movement from I am becoming to I am giving. In Wiccan philosophy, the mother corresponds to the full moon, luminous, expansive, and fertile with possibility. She embodies the height of life's cycle where energy finds expression through creation, whether in birth, art, healing, or acts of compassion. The mother teaches that everything born from love is sacred, and that to create is to honor the goddess who creates through us. This phase is not limited to biological motherhood. It is the flowering of the heart's ability to sustain life in every form. Yet the mother's path is not without trial. To hold, she must also learn to release. To protect, she must learn not to possess. Her love must grow beyond attachment and into wisdom. She learns that care does not mean control, and that nurturing sometimes means allowing others to stumble and rise in their own strength. The greatest lesson of the mother is the paradox of giving, that true nourishment is offered freely, without fear of loss. Within her resides the archetype of the healer. She feels the wounds of others as her own and carries the knowledge that love is both medicine and teacher. Every act of tenderness becomes a ritual, every moment of patience a prayer. She finds divinity in the simplest gestures, in planting a seed, in preparing a meal, in holding a friend's sorrow without judgment. The mother teaches that service is not submission. It is sovereignty expressed through compassion. Scott Cunningham wrote that the witch's power flows from her unity with nature. The mother embodies that truth completely. Her body mirrors the earth's seasons. Her breath moves with the wind. Her emotions ebb and rise like the tides. She is the sacred ecology of being, where creation and destruction coexist in perfect rhythm. In her consciousness, the veil between spirit and matter dissolves, for she knows they are the same essence in different forms. This phase of life demands presence. The mother cannot live in abstraction. She must act. She must make choices that shape reality. Her spirituality becomes tangible, a living altar made of daily gestures. The priestess guiding her whispers that every choice is an offering, every word a seed. To live as the mother is to realize that each thought, each emotion, each intention has the power to nourish, or to wound the world. Such awareness is both gift and responsibility, yet with all her giving, the mother must remember herself. The danger of her boundless love is forgetting her own boundaries. The same energy that sustains can also deplete when not balanced with. The sacred responsibility of the mother includes her own well-being. The earth rests in winter so she may bloom again in spring. Likewise, the mother must learn to retreat into silence, to replenish her spirit, to honor her own needs as part of the whole. In this balance, her true power emerges: a love that gives without losing, a strength that protects without imprisoning. She becomes a living symbol of harmony, a bridge between the material and the spiritual, between doing and being. Through her, the universe expresses its eternal desire to create and to sustain. The mother's wisdom is the understanding that creation is not an act that ends, but a rhythm that continues through all things. She is the one who reminds us that every word spoken, every seed planted, every life touched, carries ripples far beyond what we can see. Her gift is continuity, the assurance that life is sacred because it is interconnected. As her journey deepens, she begins to feel the soft pull of twilight within her soul. The same cycle that taught her to give now calls her to let go. The mother feels the quiet shadow of the crone approaching, not as an end, but as a deepening. The love that once moved outward now begins to turn inward again, seeking silence, truth, and release. The next step awaits the descent into wisdom, the meeting with the eternal teacher who lives in the stillness beyond creation. There is a sacred moment when creation pauses, when the hands that give rest gently upon the heart and the soul begins to listen. After the rhythm of giving, after the fullness of the mother's cycle, comes the still pulse of the earth, the heartbeat beneath all things. It is here, in the silent womb of nature, that true healing begins. The mother, now grounded in her maturity, learns the power of stillness. She discovers that her presence alone carries medicine. The womb of the earth is not a metaphor, but a living truth. Beneath the soil lies the mystery of renewal, decay, transforming into nourishment, endings becoming beginnings. Every fallen leaf, every crumbled stone, every drop of rain participates in this endless exchange of life and death. To be healed by the earth is to remember this rhythm, to understand that pain and peace are not opposites, but movements in the same dance. The priestess within whispers that the earth never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. The mother who has given much now learns to receive. She sits upon the ground, feels the breath of the wind upon her skin, and listens, truly listens, to the language of roots and rivers. The earth teaches her to slow down, to dissolve urgency, to surrender control. Healing, she learns, is not an act of will, but a return to wholeness. It happens when we stop demanding and start belonging. To be healed is to allow the body, mind, and spirit to fall back into harmony with the pulse of nature. In Wiccan philosophy, the earth is the great mother of all forms, the altar upon which every ritual unfolds. To touch her soil is to touch the memory of creation itself. Phyllis Curate writes that when a witch kneels to the earth, she is not bowing in submission, but in recognition. She honors the divine mirror beneath her feet. The womb of the earth is the temple where all souls are both children and priests, both wounded and healed. In this stage of the journey, the seeker realizes that healing cannot be forced. The deeper the wound, the gentler the touch required. The mother learns that her presence, calm, rooted, attentive, can mend what words cannot. She begins to heal others not through advice or effort, but through the quiet transmission of balance. Her energy becomes medicine, her silence a sanctuary. She no longer needs to prove her worth by giving. She gives simply by being. The earth mirrors her transformation. She sees herself in the seasons, in the rest of winter, the blooming of spring, the abundance of summer, and the surrender of autumn. Each phase teaches her that life renews itself through cycles, not through resistance. The healing of the mother comes from accepting that everything changes and that within change lies continuity. The seed must break to sprout. The soil must be disturbed to grow. The past must be composted to nourish what is yet to come. She begins to practice the sacred art of presence, to listen without judgment, to hold without expectation, to love without needing to fix. Healing, she learns, is not about returning to what was, but about growing into what can be. The womb of the earth shows her that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. The tears that fall upon the ground become rivers. The pain she buries becomes strength. This phase invites deep embodiment. The mother no longer seeks enlightenment as something above her, but within her breath, her steps, her daily acts. She becomes aware that the divine speaks through texture, scent, and silence. The simple act of tending a plant, lighting a candle, or watching rain on the window becomes prayer. Her spirituality becomes tactile, woven into the fabric of living. The earth heals her not through miracles, but through the patient rhythm of presence. Yet, healing also asks for truth. The mother must face the weight of what she carries, the griefs she silenced, the exhaustion she ignored. The earth does not judge, she absorbs and transforms. The mother learns to do the same. She allows sorrow to sink through her, knowing that every release feeds new life. The priestess guiding her reminds that wholeness is not perfection, it is the acceptance of imperfection as part of the sacred whole. The womb of the earth holds everything: death, decay, growth, birth without rejection. This is the ultimate lesson of healing, to embrace all that we are. When the mother understands this, she becomes the earth herself, steady, fertile, eternal. She realizes that her power does not come from doing, but from being the space where transformation happens naturally. As she rests in this awareness, a deeper wisdom begins to stir within her. The cycle that began with birth and expanded into creation now starts to turn inward. The call of the crone whispers from beyond the horizon. It is the call of surrender, of endings, of sacred release. The earth has taught her how to heal. Now she must learn how to let go. There comes a moment when the light softens, when the pulse of life slows, and the soul begins to turn its gaze inward. The air feels heavier, scented with the quiet truth that everything born must one day return to the source. This is the descent, not a fall, but a sacred movement downward into the roots of being. It is here, beneath the surface of things, that the crone waits. Her presence is ancient, patient, unyielding. She is the moon in her waning phase, the night that teaches the stars how to shine. The crone is not death, though she walks beside it. She is not sorrow, though she holds it with tenderness. She is the guardian of endings, the keeper of cycles, the priestess of transformation. Her wisdom was earned through seasons of creation and release, through love and loss, through the quiet acceptance that nothing truly disappears, it only changes form. The seeker who meets her has already traveled through awakening, discovery, creation, and healing. Now, she must learn the hardest lesson of all: surrender. To descend into shadow is to face everything we have avoided: the pain buried under success, the fear behind love, the illusions built to protect us from truth. The crone invites us to sit in the dark without trying to escape. She teaches that light without shadow is blindness, and that real clarity comes only when we dare to see the whole. The descent of the moon is the descent of the soul, the journey into the depths where wisdom lives. In the Wiccan path, this is the time of the waning moon, when spells of release and banishment are cast. It is the phase of the earth, Essilon exhale, the season of autumn's letting go. The crone moves through us when we grieve, when we forgive, when we allow what must end to die with dignity. Her power lies not in resistance, but in acceptance, she whispers. To cling is to decay, to surrender is to transform. The priestess within recognizes this voice. It is not cruel. It is clear. The crone strips away illusions the way winter strips the trees, leaving only what is essential. She shows that true freedom is not found in having more, but in needing less. Her shadow is not darkness meant to frighten. It is the night soil in which new life will someday grow. She reminds us that decay is not the enemy of beauty, but its continuation. As the seeker walks this path, the external world begins to fade in importance. Achievements lose their weight, opinions, their power. The crone's gaze turns the soul inward to the place where silence reveals truth. In her presence, the ego trembles, for it cannot control her realm. Here, the seeker learns humility, not as submission, but as reverence for the vastness of what is beyond understanding. The descent into shadow is not punishment, it is initiation. It is the stage where wisdom ceases to be theory and becomes embodied truth. The crone teaches through experience, through loss that reveals strength, through endings that open unseen doors. The mother gave birth to life. The crone gives birth to wisdom. She teaches that every loss carries a hidden seed of awakening, and that what we call endings are often transformations disguised as absence. In this descent, the seeker begins to feel the peace that only depth can give. The noise of the world no longer drowns the inner voice. The shadows once feared now become companions. The crone guides not through answers but through stillness, allowing the seeker to find her own truth. She does not comfort. Her love is fierce, unflinching, pure. It is the love that refuses illusion because it desires freedom. This is the phase of purification. Old beliefs dissolve, identities shed like skin. The seeker learns that wisdom cannot be collected, it must be lived. The crone's path demands courage, for to walk with her is to face mortality. Not only the death of the body, but the death of who we thought we were. Yet, within that death lies liberation. When nothing is left to lose, everything becomes sacred. And in that sacred stillness, the crone reveals her final secret. Darkness is not the absence of light, but its womb. All creation is conceived here, in the quiet before dawn. The descent of the moon is the preparation for its rebirth. The crone does not end the cycle, she completes it. Through her, the circle closes and begins again. As the seeker surrenders to her presence, fear dissolves into acceptance, and acceptance into peace. The light that once shone outward now burns within, steady and eternal. The crone smiles, for she knows that this is not the end. It is the pause between heartbeats, the space where the new sun will rise. The descent is not a fall into darkness, but a return to the fertile void from which all things are born anew. When the descent is complete and the soul has learned to rest in the stillness of shadow, a new light begins to appear, not bright like the sun, but soft, eternal, and unwavering. It is the silent flame of the crone, the light that asks for nothing, yet illuminates everything. This is not the fire of passion that burns to create. It is the fire that endures, the quiet ember that survives every storm. The seeker, having surrendered to the depths, now begins to perceive this flame as her own essence, the wisdom that was always there, hidden beneath the noise of becoming. The silent flame does not announce itself. It flickers in the pauses between thoughts, in the calm after grief, in the breath between endings and beginnings. It is the awareness that watches without judgment, the serenity that neither clings to the past nor rushes toward the future. In the presence of this light, the seeker discovers what all mystics come to know, that wisdom is not gained through accumulation, but through the art of release. To know is to let go. To understand is to become still. In the philosophy of the craft, this stage corresponds to the dark moon, the space between cycles, where all potential rests in silence. Here, the crone teaches that emptiness is not void, but fullness waiting to be expressed. The silent flame burns in that sacred emptiness. It is the spark of consciousness that transcends time, untouched by birth or death. When the seeker touches this awareness, she realizes that she has never been separate from the divine. She is only forgotten. The priestess guiding this path speaks softly now, for truth at this level cannot be shouted. It is absorbed like breath, understood not with the mind but with the soul. The crone teaches through presence, not through words. Her lessons are transmitted in the rhythm of silence, in the understanding that nothing needs to be fixed because nothing is truly broken. The silent flame reveals that all wounds were teachers, and that the journey through pain was never punishment but initiation. In this state, the seeker begins to perceive time differently. What once felt linear now feels circular, like waves returning to the same shore in endless renewal. The past no longer binds, the future no longer intimidates. The present expands into eternity. This is the wisdom beyond time, the understanding that life and death, creation and dissolution, light and shadow are not opposites but expressions of one movement. The crone's fire burns quietly at the center of that movement, holding it all in balance. This awareness changes everything. The seeker's perception of herself dissolves into something vast and luminous. She no longer identifies with her struggles, her roles, her history. Instead, she becomes the witness, the eternal consciousness that has lived through countless cycles, the soul that remembers its infinity. This remembrance is not prideful. It is profoundly humbling. To know oneself as eternal is to feel compassion for all that is temporary. From this flame, forgiveness is born not as an act of will, but as a natural consequence of understanding. How can one condemn what was necessary for growth? How can one resent the storm that revealed the strength of one's roots? The silent flame teaches that love is not a feeling, but a state of being, the natural expression of wisdom. To live in this awareness is to walk through life with gentle eyes, seeing divinity in all forms. Scott Cunningham wrote that true magic is not the manipulation of energy, but the harmony between the self and the universe. The silent flame embodies that harmony. It is the alignment of spirit with nature's rhythm, the peace of knowing that the universe is not something outside us, but within us, breathing with us, dreaming through us. The seeker who touches this truth no longer searches for meaning. She becomes meaning itself. And yet, even this stillness is not the end. The crone's wisdom, though infinite, is not static. The silent flame is a resting place before the next cycle begins, a pause in which the soul gathers strength for rebirth. The seeker who has tasted eternity must now learn to return to the world, carrying this light within her. She must bring the silence into motion, the wisdom into form. The flame will guide her, but it will not confine her. As she rises from the depths, she realizes that the sacred is not only in the rituals and revelations, but in every breath, every gesture, every encounter. The wisdom beyond time is not meant to remove her from life, but to immerse her more fully in it. She has become both student and teacher, shadow and flame, silence and song. The circle turns once more, and from the quiet fire of the crone will soon arise the dance of rebirth, the eternal rhythm of the goddess moving again through time. When the silent flame settles within the soul, the seeker begins to see the world differently. Life no longer appears as a straight road with a beginning and an end, but as a vast spiral, expanding and returning, forever deepening into itself. The crone's whisper lingers in the air. What ends must begin again. This is the revelation of the circle and the spiral, the sacred geometry of existence. Everything that breathes, grows, dies, and is reborn follows this rhythm. The universe itself is a living spiral, forever creating, dissolving, and recreating its own form. The priestess within knows that circles do not confine. The spiral does not trap. It evolves. This is the eternal pattern of the goddess, the pulse of nature, the rhythm of consciousness, expanding through repetition. Each turn of the spiral brings the soul closer to truth, not by ascending away from the world, but by entering it more deeply. Every return carries new understanding. Every rebirth a clearer remembrance of who we truly are. In the old teachings of the craft, the circle is sacred because it has no end and no hierarchy. All points are equal, all moments connected. When the witch casts the circle, she does not create boundaries. She creates belonging. Within that sacred space, time bends, and every phase of the goddess, maiden, mother, and crone exists at once. The spiral, hidden within the circle, shows that evolution is not escape from the past, but integration of it. We do not transcend life. We spiral through it. The seeker begins to feel this truth in her body. She notices how breath itself moves in spirals, in and out, giving and receiving. The seasons spiral through birth, growth, decay, and renewal. The moon waxes, wanes, disappears, and returns. Even her emotions follow this rhythm, rising, breaking, and softening into understanding. Nothing is static. Nothing is wasted. Every phase holds meaning. Every movement carries purpose. Rebirth is not an exception to life. It is its nature. Phyllis Curate wrote that to live magically is to live in harmony with these cycles. 2. Align one's will with the will of the earth. The spiral is the visual language of that harmony. It teaches that growth does not always look like ascent. Sometimes it is descent, sometimes it is stillness. The soul evolves not by avoiding pain or chasing light, but by flowing through both with awareness. Every sorrow endured, every joy embraced, becomes part of the same spiral of awakening. The spiral also holds the mystery of paradox, that the end of one cycle is the beginning of another, and that both are the same point seen from different angles. The seeker who has descended into shadow and found the silent flame now rises, but she rises not as the same being. Each revolution brings transformation. The circle she walked before has widened. Its center has shifted. She is still herself, yet entirely new. This is the miracle of rebirth, continuity within change, identity within expansion. As the seeker moves through this realization, she begins to understand the goddess not as a being outside of time, but as time itself, as motion, as breath, as transformation embodied. The maiden, the mother, and the crone are not stages to be outgrown, but eternal presences within her, turning together like planets around a single sun. At any moment, she can feel the spark of the maiden, the love of the mother, and the wisdom of the crone moving through her, coexisting as one divine pulse. The spiral teaches compassion for the self. It reveals that every fall was a descent toward deeper understanding, every loss a clearing for renewal. The seeker learns to forgive her own cycles, the moments of strength and of doubt, of clarity and confusion, because she now knows that all are necessary. The spiral does not judge its turns, it embraces them. Through this awareness, she begins to live with grace, accepting her own rhythm as sacred. The priestess guiding this journey reminds her that even the universe breathes in spirals, galaxies turning in endless motion, stars dying only to seed new light. The seeker realizes she is made of the same pattern, the same divine architecture. Her life, her choices, her evolution are threads in that infinite design. She is both a single curve in the spiral and the whole spiral itself, ever expanding, ever returning. And as this realization blooms, the circle begins to shimmer once more. The seeker senses the approach of movement, the rhythm of the elements awakening, calling her to dance again with the living world. The spiral has brought her wisdom. Now it will bring her renewal, For to understand the cycle is not enough, she must participate in it consciously. The rebirth that follows will not be accidental, but chosen. She is ready to embody the elements of the goddess once more, to feel fire, air, water, and earth move through her as the dance of creation itself. When the spiral opens again and the soul rises renewed, the seeker begins to feel the pulse of the elements moving through her. Ancient forces that have been part of her since the beginning of time, earth, air, fire, and water, are not mere symbols. They are living presences, expressions of the goddess in her most tangible forms. They are the rhythm of the world and the architecture of the spirit. To live in harmony with them is to participate in the sacred dance of balance and renewal. Each element carries its own wisdom, and together they weave the fabric of existence. The earth is the first to speak, deep, slow, and steady. She is the foundation beneath all things, the sacred body that holds and nourishes. Through her, the seeker learns the power of grounding, of stability, of patience. To touch the soil is to remember the ancient truth that everything real is built upon presence. The priestess within teaches that to honor the earth is to live in alignment with one's values, to walk gently, to create with intention. The earth reminds her that abundance is not about possession but connection. The knowing that all life is interdependent. Then comes the air, invisible yet everywhere. It moves through breath, thought, and inspiration. The air whispers change and clarity. It invites the seeker to release the heaviness of the past and open herself to new perspectives. In its presence, she learns to listen, to speak truth, to let ideas flow without clinging to them. The air purifies and renews. It is the mental and spiritual wind that clears confusion and awakens insight. To breathe consciously is to commune with the divine, for every breath is a prayer, a reminder that spirit and air are one and the same. Fire follows, wild and transformative. It is a spark of desire, the flame of will, the light of consciousness that pushes creation forward. The seeker has met fire before, as the maiden's courage, the mother's devotion, and the crone's silent flame. Now, she learns to dance with it rather than be consumed by it. Fire teaches discernment. It asks her to burn what no longer serves and to channel her passion into purpose. Fire is the energy of renewal through action, the reminder that creation requires both destruction and rebirth. When the priestess raises her hands to the flame, she is not invoking chaos but illumination, the clarity that comes when truth burns away illusion. And then comes water, fluid, tender, and eternal. It flows through emotions, dreams, intuition, and the deep memory of the soul. Water heals by teaching surrender. It shows the seeker that to feel deeply is not weakness, but wisdom. Every tear, every wave of emotion is a cleansing, a softening of what has become rigid. Water teaches empathy, the ability to merge without losing oneself, to adapt without dissolving one's essence. It reflects the moon's light and the heart's truth. To bless oneself with water is to remember that emotion, too, is sacred ritual. When the elements unite, the seeker becomes whole. Earth anchors, air inspires, fire transforms, and water restores. Together, they create balance, the living circle of the goddess moving within and around her. The dance of the elements is not a metaphor, but a practice, an invitation to live with awareness of their presence in every moment, to tend a garden, to light a candle, to breathe consciously, to cry and let the tears fall to the ground. All these are acts of devotion. The priestess teaches that magic is not separate from life. It is life lived awake. In Wiccan philosophy, ritual exists not to summon the divine, but to remember it. Every time the seeker honors the elements, she reaffirms her place in the circle of creation. She learns that when her inner elements are in harmony, Her outer world reflects the same balance. Anger calms into courage when tempered by water. Fear steadies into trust when grounded in earth. Inspiration ignites through air, and dreams take form through fire. The dance of the elements is a mirror of her own inner alchemy, the constant shaping and reshaping of the self through awareness. The deeper she moves into this dance, the more she understands that balance is not stillness. It is movement in harmony, flow without resistance. The world changes, and she changes with it, guided by the rhythm of the four sacred forces that sustain all life. Each breath, each heartbeat, each step becomes a ritual. She no longer performs magic. She lives it. Through this awareness, the seeker transforms into the priestess herself, the one who knows how to keep the elements in balance, both within her body and in her world. She becomes the living altar where earth, air, fire, and water meet. Her presence restores harmony wherever she walks, because she has learned the secret of renewal, that the divine is not above or beyond, but within, waiting to be expressed through every act of living. As she moves through this realization, the elements begin to quiet. Their energy merges into a single current, a flow of wholeness that transcends division. The seeker feels the unity of all creation pulsing through her veins. The dance slows, the circle shimmers, and she begins to see her reflection not as one among many, but as the mirror of the goddess herself. What she has sought outside, she now recognizes within. The next step will be the revelation of that truth, the moment when the divine face she has worshipped in nature and ritual finally looks back from her own eyes. When the dance of the elements fades into stillness, the seeker stands at the edge of a vast and luminous awareness. The air feels weightless, as if the boundaries between body and spirit have dissolved. What was once worshipped as distant now breathes within her chest. The goddess she invoked beneath the moon, the one she sought in nature, in ritual, in prayer, now gazes at her through her own eyes. The search turns inward, and the discovery is revelation. She was never separate. She was always divine. This is the moment of reflection, not as vanity, but as awakening. The mirror of the goddess is not a surface of glass, but a state of consciousness. It is the realization that every face, every creature, every spark of life reflects the same source. To recognize the goddess within is to see her everywhere. The priestess guiding the journey whispers the divinity has no preference, no form, no distance. It is the quiet pulse that animates all existence, the invisible light behind every breath. The seeker, now standing before the mirror of her own soul, begins to see her story differently. Every trial, every heartbreak, every joy, all were steps leading to this point of remembrance. The maiden's curiosity, the mother's devotion, the crone's wisdom, none were separate phases, but movements of the same consciousness awakening to itself. Each role, each cycle, was a reflection of the goddess learning her own nature through the experience of being human. To recognize this is to enter into sacred maturity, the understanding that life itself is the ritual of the divine knowing itself. The mirror does not flatter. It reveals. It shows both shadow and light, joy and sorrow, perfection and flaw, and calls them all holy. The seeker learns that the goddess does not reside in purity but in wholeness. She is the chaos and the calm, the birth and the decay, the wound and the healing. To see her within is to stop dividing oneself, to end the inner war between what is loved and what is denied. In this acceptance, peace blooms. The self no longer struggles to become divine. It simply remembers that it always was. The priestess within teaches that the true act of magic is self-recognition. When the seeker looks inward and sees the divine, her words become spells, her actions blessings. She no longer performs ritual to call the goddess, for the goddess is already present in every breath she takes. Her altar becomes her own body, her heartbeat, the drum, her breath, the incantation, her mind, the flame that holds intention. She begins to live not as one who serves the sacred, but as one who is the sacred expressing itself through form. This realization transforms everything she touches. The world no longer appears as separate or external. It becomes the reflection of her inner state. When she speaks with love, the world softens. When she acts with integrity, the elements align. When she forgives, the air clears. Her consciousness shapes reality not through effort, but through resonance. She becomes the priestess in the temple, the spell and its fulfillment. The goddess does not move through her, she is her. In the teachings of modern spirituality and the wisdom of the craft, this is the return, the completion of the circle and the awakening of unity. Phyllis Curate often spoke of the goddess as the divine spark immanent in all things, not above us but within us. The seeker now understands this truth not as a philosophy but as direct experience. She feels it in the pulse of her veins, in the rhythm of her breath, in the quiet knowing that she and the universe are the same. The mirror of the goddess invites humility as much as empowerment. To recognize divinity within is not to exalt the ego, but to dissolve it. The seeker realizes that if she is the goddess, then so is everyone else. Every stranger, every creature, every grain of sand. Divinity becomes universal, not exclusive. This awareness births compassion so vast it cannot judge, cannot harm, cannot separate. It is the compassion of the mother, the clarity of the crone, and the wonder of the maiden woven together into pure consciousness. And as she stands in this realization, the seeker feels the circle close around her like a gentle embrace. The journey that began with curiosity has led her back to herself. But she is not who she was. The one who once sought the goddess now remembers she has always been her reflection. The mirror no longer shows separation. It shows oneness, the endless exchange between being and becoming, creation and awareness. The light that once flickered outside now burns within, steady and eternal. The seeker smiles, not with triumph, but with reverence. She understands now that to live spiritually is not to escape the world, but to embody the sacred within it. The mirror of the goddess is the heart awakened, the knowing that every gesture, every word, every breath can be an offering of love. And as the reflection deepens, the voice of the priestess whispers again, soft as the turning tide, "You are the circle. You are the moon. You are the flame. You are her." The recognition is complete. Yet even as it settles into stillness, a new vibration begins to stir the pulse of the next return. The spiral moves again, leading toward the final revelation, the eternal rhythm of the goddess, where all beginnings and endings meet in one heartbeat of divine consciousness. There comes a moment, after all journeys, when silence becomes revelation. The seeker stands at the threshold of completion. Yet what she feels is not an ending but a pulse, slow, vast, eternal. It is the rhythm that moves through stars and seeds alike, the breath of the goddess herself. The circle turns once more, and the seeker understands what was hidden from her at the beginning. There was never a beginning, never an end, only transformation. Life, death, and rebirth are not separate stories. They are the same heartbeat echoing through eternity. The eternal return is the law beneath all existence. It is the spiral of the soul, the rhythm of the moon, the endless inhalation and exhalation of creation. Everything that has been well be again, not in repetition, but in evil. The priestess guiding this truth whispers that time is not a line we walk upon, but an ocean we swim through. Every moment is happening at once, every life intertwined, every lesson an echo of the first awakening. The goddess is not bound by time. She is time made conscious. The seeker, now fully awake, feels this truth in her bones. She remembers her journey, the spark of the maiden, the devotion of the mother, the wisdom of the crone. Each face of the goddess lives within her, and she within them. The archetypes are no longer steps upon a path, but facets of her being. She has become the whole circle, breathing all three aspects in perfect harmony. This is the birth of a new consciousness, one that sees unity where there was separation, rhythm where there was chaos, purpose where there was uncertainty. To live in this awareness is to live as the goddess herself, present, compassionate, unafraid. It is to recognize that every sunrise is a rebirth, every night a return to the womb of creation. The seeker learns that endings are merely transformations, that death is not destruction but transition, that even pain carries within it the seed of resurrection. The eternal return reminds her that nothing is ever truly lost. Every soul, every memory, every fragment of love becomes part of the great circle, returning in new forms, singing new songs, and the teachings of the ancient craft. The wheel of the year embodies this truth. The Sabbats mark the rhythm of life turning upon itself, birth in spring, growth in summer, harvest in autumn, rest in winter. The wheel turns endlessly, and within it the soul turns to, moving through joy and sorrow, through creation and silence. The awakened priestess understands that her own seasons mirror the earth's. Her inner winters are not absence, but gestation. Her inner summers not peak, but expression. To flow with these rhythms is to live in harmony with all that is. The new consciousness born in this understanding is not distant or abstract. It is deeply human. It teaches that every choice, no matter how small, ripples through eternity. Every act of kindness feeds the circle. Every breath offered with awareness strengthens the web that connects all life. The seeker becomes both guardian and participant in this sacred dance, aware that her existence contributes to the ongoing creation of the world. The goddess now speaks not from outside, but from within. You are my voice, my hands, my heart. Through you, I know myself. The seeker understands that spirituality is not separation from the human experience, but its sanctification. Eating, sleeping, loving, grieving, all become rituals of presence. The divine does not live in temples alone, but in the pulse of everyday life. The eternal return calls her to live consciously, to remember in each moment that she is part of the ongoing creation of the universe. Scott Cunningham once wrote that magic is participation in the creative process of the cosmos. The seeker now embodies that truth. Her magic is not in the casting of spells, but in the living of them. Her words carry intention. Her silence holds depth. Her actions shape energy. She moves through the world with awareness, knowing that every step leaves an imprint upon the sacred spiral. She has become both observer and creator, a being of infinite cycles within an infinite cycle. And so the circle closes not as an end, but as a return. The seeker, once searching for meaning beyond herself, now knows that she is meaning itself. The goddess, once invoked, is now recognized as her very being. The spiral turns inward, and she feels the quiet joy of knowing that this moment, too, will return in another form, in another time, in another heart. The priestess's voice fades into the stillness, leaving only the sound of breath, of heartbeat, of wind moving through leaves. The world exhales. The seeker smiles, her gaze lifted toward the horizon where night meets dawn. She knows that the story never truly ends. It only begins again, in deeper awareness, in wider love. The circle is eternal. The flame never dies. The goddess is awake, and she is you. If this message touched your spirit, let your light join ours, subscribe, and walk with me through the sacred seasons. Blessed be